Good afternoon, everyone. And this is the crucial moment because we just had lunch, and now I think our session will keep you not as sleepy as you are now. So I welcome all of you in this very different session, which is out of the box and very innovative session, I must say, that everyone keep awake. And once again, I welcome all of you. Thanks, Dr. Burman, for giving us the opportunity as a partner in Mobise Foundation's very prestigious conference, ICAC. Mr. Garg, I am very happy to have you here on the second year of yours and mine also as a side event moderator and presenter. So today we are here for giving you a little knowledge about ocean, biodiversity, ocean literacy, mangroves and carbon sequestration. It's a very diverse kind of side event which we have planned in presence of all of you. So for these sessions we are having a chairperson, Mr. Leonard Sonnenschein, who has over 48 years of experience in keeping fish, 37 years experience in scientific research, 25 years experience in science education, innovation, over 100 publications and extensive performance in conservation collaboration, climate change issues and public awareness. He started his career in a medical research laboratory, and Leonard has been the CEO of the World Aquarium in St. Louis since 1992. He has been created 5 museums and these aquariums in all over the world. So thank you, Leo, for accepting this invitation and chairing our session. I welcome you on this session. We have Antonella Vasallo. She is the Managing Director of the International Ocean Institute at its headquarters in Malta. She has academic background in chemistry and biology with specific experience in environmental appraisal and aquaculture and nutrition of finfish. Her chemistry is precisely attached with ocean and especially for ocean literacy among the layman. She started training programs on ocean literacy all over the world. Ms. Vasallo has served as a board member appointed by the Ministry of the Government of Malta and many other eminent posts. Welcome, Antonella, for this session and accepting our invitation also. We have Mr. Kanna Siripurapu, Senior Fellow of SaciWaters. Very difficult name and very difficult man, but very easy to go. A biocultural diversity enthusiast, experienced program manager with a demonstrated history of working in the civil and social organization industry, strong program and project management professional skilled in non-profit organization, sustainable development, policy analysis, sustainability and science. Currently he is working as a senior fellow at SaciWaters in Hyderabad, Telangana. And we have Sunil Murlidhar Shastri. He is participating from UK. So Mr. Sunil Murlidhar Shastri is a consultant, educator, speaker and Rotary International Paul Harris Fellow. He is as deep as ocean in the knowledge of ocean and environment governance. He found his passion for PSM in Maribus in 1982 under Ma'am Elizabeth Borghese, to whom he has very high regards as like any of guru in our life. Though he started his career in mining and ocean engineering, he is known as a passionate trainer in the field of ocean literacy. Once again, welcome Sunilji. You are what to say, our friend, philosopher and guide, and I'm very happy at least you could participate through web. So this is the technology. And I myself, Dr. Vinitaa Apte, founder and director of TERRE Policy Center. TERRE means Earth in French, and we stand for technology, education, research and rehabilitation for the environment. We have started ocean literacy program with Antonella and Sunil Shastri in India. And we are getting lots and lots of participation in every program. So TERRE is working in biodiversity, forestation, environment education, and any other parameters for the climate change. But today I just don't want to say more about TERRE, but I want to listen from the panel. So over to you. I think I should see to, yeah, Leonard. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a 1-minute video that will introduce the subject.
Earth. From 2 miles up, it is a beautiful blue planet. It seems covered with crystal clear water and lush green land masses. But when you zoom in, the view from the surface is quite different. It is a planet struggling to survive untold changes to its atmosphere, oceans, and wetlands. A planet where droughts caused by climate change threaten a global water crisis, and where even today 1 billion people lack access to clean water. A planet in which 1/2 of its wetlands have been destroyed and polluted river runoff has created large areas in which nothing lives. A planet in which 40% of its coastal waters are no longer fishable or swimmable. Over 90% of fish, once plentiful, have entirely disappeared. A planet where the melting of the ancient ice masses, rising sea levels, and destructive hurricanes and storms are caused by man-made global warming. Earth is a beautiful blue planet, struggling to survive and neglect of its own people. Every child born from this point in time is entering this life as an endangered species. Now, for the first time, scientists, artists, educators, companies, and dignitaries from around the world coming together to bring attention to and begin the greatest campaign the planet has ever faced. The campaign to save the planet, our oceans, and ourselves.
Thank you. Is this on? Okay, good. So I also am head of the Sonnenschein Institute. Somebody else named it after me. I complained a little bit, but we went ahead. Let's see. So ocean science and coastal protection, as I see it, is divided into several key concern categories. Climate change as ocean effects, how climate affects the ocean, how it creates possibilities of tsunamis and hurricanes that create tremendous devastation, but also how it affects land changes in terms of drought, in terms of floods. Undersea challenges and storms like we see on top of the ocean occur underneath the ocean and have tremendous destructive possibilities and powers. Coastal protection from these events, has to be considered in many places, but especially in South Asia, where there's been so much devastation. The only types of things, have to be done take tremendous planning and lots of money. The effects of El Nino are facing us right now. The waters in many parts of the ocean are warmer than they ever been before, and they're killing fish and devastating coral reefs. The coral reefs are being tremendously affected by the temperature change, by pollution, by desalinization. And fisheries effects by overfishing and by the lack of proper protection for nurseries. And the most important thing to discuss today is engaging society in recognizing these tremendous issues. For me, at the foundation, we concentrate on coral reefs. We're able to bring a coral reef to life in 3 weeks. We're able to bring entire coral populations covering the ocean floor in 5 weeks. We're able to stimulate fisheries. In 5 weeks we went from no fish to 8,000 fish in 1 square kilometer. We also look at the river systems and how to decouple the pollution from the farm sources that poisons our rivers and creates blue-green algae and red tide. We also have ways to stimulate agriculture production. We have a new agriculture production that's entirely natural that increases production by 10 times compared to normal production with an 80% reduction in fertilizer, which also decreases the inputs to the rivers and the oceans. We have ways to improve aquaculture and aquaponics that are very important to feeding the planet. We have ways to convert plastic into plants. We have ways to remediate the land. We have ways to help restore the oceans. And we have ways to keep ice as ice and deal with oil spill remediation, blue-green algae. So, but I'm not here to talk about what I'm doing. I'm here to learn from other people. And if anybody's interested in anything I had to say, see me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. I should ask to deliver speech to Antonella. Antonella, can you?
Yes, of course. So I'll just find my presentation, which should be somewhere here. Okay. So, are you seeing the presentation?
There you are.
Ah, fantastic. So, I'm, well, happy to be here again today, and good afternoon for those of you. I really appreciate the attention that, I think this is running automatically, that you're getting. And I'm here to speak to you a little bit more about ocean literacy, which is what I had started to speak a bit in my presentation earlier on the panel. Basically, in continuation of the theme of ocean literacy, of education for sustainable development, I want to specifically focus on ocean literacy. I'll be presenting an academy which was developed by the International Ocean Institute, and the intention of the Ocean Academy is to improve global ocean literacy. What we do this is, how we do this is by making it very easy to follow, very easy to register to, and very relatable. So, a few brief words about the International Ocean Institute. We were founded more than 50 years ago by Elizabeth Borghese, and who is a person who links me, Sunil, and Vinitaa now, right? And we are an international NGO with consultative status at the United Nations, and we focus a lot on training, education, and capacity development. And I like to say always our motto is to create knowledgeable future leaders in ocean governance. I would like to extend this as well, just to say knowledgeable ocean leaders, you know. And we do this in several ways. The principal way that has been done is by focusing on training and capacity development for people who are early to mid-career ocean professionals. We have been doing this on an annual basis all over the world since 1982 consistently. We also produce publications, and this is a brief idea of our training courses. And over the years, we have been very blessed to have created an international corpus of IOI alumni, something that we launched last year as part of our 50th anniversary program. Is in fact the Ocean Academy. And what happens is that the Ocean Academy has been a way for our graduated alumni from the training courses over all these years to be able to give back to their communities of their knowledge which they have accumulated over the years, maybe even through their linkage with the International Ocean Institute. We are very blessed to have a growing and thriving family of graduates from the IOI training courses, so more than 2,000 alumni over the years from more than 140 countries. So this forms the backbone of our global ocean literacy program. Just before I continue, just a brief definition of what literacy is, and specifically ocean literacy. And in the media and publications around this, the generally agreed definition is that to be ocean literate is to understand the ocean's influence on you, but very importantly, your influence on the ocean. And an ocean literate person, therefore, understands how the ocean, I just want to make a small point. We always refer to ocean nowadays, and this is very specifically to emphasize that this is one interconnected biome habitat. And I think it behoves us very much to remember this, that we are talking of one interconnected watery realm. So an ocean literate person understands the essential principles and fundamental concepts about how the ocean works. That it's a habitat, that it's an environment, that it's a modulator of climate, and all the things that we of the ocean community almost take for granted. Someone who's ocean literate can communicate about the ocean in a meaningful way. But most importantly, for our purposes, is that someone who is ocean literate is able to make informed and responsible decisions concerning their actions, because they know how these will impact the ocean and therefore the greater livelihood and life on it. Ocean literacy has started to become something of a buzzword in literature, and whether you look at lay literature such as media online, or even more scientific, more peer-reviewed publications, I think there is consensus on a couple of things. First of all, that society at large still lacks basic literacy about the ocean. Something that has been pointed out as well is that very often the ocean community is speaking to itself, and that right outside the ocean community, messages are not spreading fast enough. So we must not only do a better job of expanding the ocean literate community, the audience. Something else that has been noted and pointed out in the literature is that there's a huge gap in ocean literacy amongst older audiences. Now, this morning, I was very encouraged to see the discussion in the room and the general agreement on the importance of reaching out to school children and children of school age. And that is indeed very important. But I think we all appreciate at some level that while this is a critical audience to reach, there is also a gap between the time when these children are going to be in a decision-making position where they can impact policy directly, and now. So I tend to be of the opinion that ocean decisions, environmental decisions, important decisions, need to start to be taken yesterday. So I think this is a strong argument for bringing in a large audience, as big of an audience as possible, into our ocean literacy outreach. If you had to look at some peer-reviewed publications concerning ocean literacy, the same refrain is repeated. Additionally, the points raised by this particular paper mention that ocean literacy is actually critical for achieving Sustainable Development Agenda 2030. It has the potential to catalyze the behavior change needed. This paper further mentions, and this will be important to my presentation, that there are 4 key drivers to accelerate this: education, which is what we're here about; cultural connections. We mustn't underestimate the importance of technology in helping us achieving these goals; knowledge exchange and science policy interconnections. All these things were mentioned earlier today. The authors of this particular paper have also pinpointed 5 main limitations to achieving an effective ocean literacy that is globally widespread. One of the things they pinpoint is that a lot of programs out there, very valuable programs I have to say, do focus on youth-centric ocean learning, maybe a little bit to the exclusion of other cohorts. Unfortunately, there is a lot of programming out there which is Western-centric, much of it in English. Many of the courses or programs out there tend to have a single issue focus, whereas ocean literacy, by its very definition, has a wide breadth. The digital divide can work for or against us, because while it's a fantastic tool for reaching out to people, we also know that it's a limitation that some people cannot access. And sometimes some ocean literacy or ocean knowledge products do not bridge that connection maybe between society and marine science and policy. So in response to these challenges, the IOI Ocean Academy has tried to meet these gaps by launching the IOI Ocean Academy. As an aside, they form part of the IOI's voluntary commitments to achieving SDG 14, which is, as you know, the Sustainable Development Goal pertaining to the oceans. And these are, the Ocean Academy is essentially 20-hour modules delivered online, free of charge, in local languages. The ocean knowledge that is delivered with the help of local experts, many of whom are IOI alumni, is locally relevant because these are local experts, and it falls within the line of IOI's oversight. And the intention, as you can see on the side of the slide, these are some of the countries in which we've been offering our Ocean Academy. And over here, I need to salute Vinitaa and Sunil, of course, because they are our valuable partners for our outreach in India. And I know that Sunil will speak more about this, so I won't take up his content. But the intention of the Ocean Academy, which is open to anyone who is interested. So anyone with a smartphone and Wi-Fi can join anywhere, anytime. So there are no barriers to access. Not language, not money, not location, nothing. Just register and join. The intention is to gain a basic understanding of the ocean, learn about the ocean holistically, to talk about sustainability, to educate, whether it's the global perspective, the interlinkages between all the disciplines, but also the intention is to take and receive questions, to gather this dialogue, this feedback, this interaction. And I can assure you, and you probably will support me in this, there are lots of questions, right? There is a big appetite for information, a big thirst for knowledge. And the people who attend these ocean modules, offered all over the place, we hope and we believe that they then become empowered to make those, to take up those local actions, those local decisions, which can positively influence their immediate communities and beyond. Just to give you an idea of where we are as of right now and what we expect by the end of 2023. So we've already run, by the end of 2023, we hope to have offered at least 40 academies. These are conservative estimates, in 19 countries and 17 languages. And we have more planned, I hope. Contents are flexible, they really reflect the local needs. And if you look at the table at the bottom, I don't know if this is still on, you can see that we are lucky to have a lot of interest. More than 9,000 people apply, and this is a conservative estimate, I can tell you, as of maybe a couple of weeks ago. But we unfortunately only have space for about 1/3 of the people who apply, because we try and keep the online module manageable so that all questions and all debates can be addressed. So what I am probably trying to say with this is that there's a lot more appetite, a lot more interest than we can possibly accommodate right now. So we always look to try and expand our program, to offer more programs in a country or in a language cluster. Just to give you an idea of the width and breadth that we are approaching and the languages, you can see that there's quite a nice spread of languages and centers that we offer in. I mentioned already the trends are all very positive and upwards. There's great interest. So I think, to me, it's now a question of making this more available, offering the modules more often. And for my last, I just want to quickly rush and not take up much time, but just to give you an idea of the impacts we are seeing from the feedback of this program that we have been running in pilot phase since Q4 of 2021. So we've collated quite a lot of feedback from our international offerings. So basically, participants come from a wide variety of backgrounds. There's no limit to age, no limit to the kind of background they have. They range from professionals who are maybe experts in their field, but not necessarily in ocean issues. There are school children, there are their grandparents, anyone who is interested can join. They all do ask questions because I get feedback from our course directors, and they say one of the most interesting parts of the course, apart from sharing knowledge, is having that interaction with people who are interested. And as a take-home note, we know that more efforts need to be made to spread ocean literacy. I'll wrap up very quickly. The topics are regional and locally relevant. People are very surprised to learn about their impact of the ocean and the ocean's impact on them. Many of these people actually come from inland locations, and the ocean is not necessarily something in the forefront of their mind. So many of them actually surprised to see what far and wide reach the ocean has in their lives. And lack of ocean literacy is really quite common. As I mentioned, accessibility is really easy, and as we see technology spreading, it's going to be easier and easier for more and more people to join. Local examples are critical in what in the jargon they call ownership. When people learn about environments that they are familiar with, the message becomes more personal, and the encouragement to do something about it becomes more strong. On the columns on the right-hand side, you can see that, taking into account the paper I showed you earlier, the Ocean Academy, the IOI's Ocean Academy, meets all those shortfalls and all those criteria identified in the paper. In summary, ocean literacy is essential to achieve Agenda 2030. Public understanding is particularly required in those populations which have been historically neglected, which have been left out maybe of the stakeholder conversations that we need to have, and which very often and tragically tend to be on the front lines of environmental collapse. So reaching out to the knowledge they need, I think, is an obligation on our shoulders when we talk about education and sustainable development. And we hope and trust that becoming more ocean literate will bring or accelerate that effective positive change. I think, in summary, that the ocean literacy, the IOI's Ocean Academy, can be an accelerator of this change and can bring ocean knowledge to the communities that need it. There is still a massive gap that needs to be filled, so I think we're only at the start of our work here. We look to expand this program, we look to bring more partners on board, we look to spread even further, because the IOI is a knowledge-based, not-for-profit NGO. For us, this is our vocation, our interest, and this is where we really spend a lot of effort. So if you have questions, I'm happy to take them when the chair says. So
Questions at the end.
Yeah.
So because we have other speakers.
Of course.
Thank you.
So
thank you, Antonella. It's a really good to know about the IOI and the passion about ocean literacy. The ocean never tires nor retires. It is as fresh as today as it was yesterday. That's what everyone says. And we are now again fresh up to listen from Sunil Shastri about his vision about ocean literacy and education. Sunil ji, please.
Thank you, Vinitaa, for your kind introduction. And I hope you can see my slides. So thank you very much for the kind introduction. And I am grateful to Dr. Berman for allowing all of us the opportunity to be here. And of course, to my friend Rambuj, for inviting me to be at the conference. Unfortunately, I cannot be there in person, but here I am. And it's good to see Leonard after ages, literally, although albeit online. And of course, Vinitaa and Antonella, who are my partners in crime, as it were, and our new friend Kanna. So thank you very much. So my name is Sunil Murlidhar Shastri, and I am the director of the International Ocean Institute, Ocean Academy, India. And I would like to take on from what Antonella had just said and sort of add a little bit of flavor as to what we are doing in conjunction with Vinitaa, Antonella, and myself in India as far as ocean literacy is concerned. So I call it Opportunities for Ocean Literacy, the IOI Ocean Academy in India. Let me start by quoting my guru, Elizabeth Manborghese, and who said that we have to create this ocean culture. And what she said by creating ocean culture was the need to create an ocean mafia to manage better the affairs of the ocean. And I mean, she used the word mafia very knowingly. Her husband was Sicilian, Giuseppe Borghese, the famous philosopher. So she had in her mind. And I also see the organizers of this conference have another session tomorrow, which talks of environmental mafia. You know, so this word has to be taken in that light. And Elizabeth said that in 1972, even before the movie Godfather came. So I think she had a vision of this ocean mafia, which is what we are trying to, bring it on. And she was talking about this ocean culture, which is similar to computer culture of the 60s. In 1962, the first personal computer, as it were, came. Environment culture, which is 1972, which is from the Stockholm Conference. And of course, she thought ocean culture starting from 1982 from the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So all these things have come together in her thought process. And I'm basically one of her soldiers, foot soldiers, as I call myself, as Antonella well knows. So this is these 7 principles of ocean literacy, according to UNESCO. So basically, it talks about ocean having big features, ocean having sort of a role to play in the lives of human beings. It influences weather. Obviously, if we didn't have this great body of water, we would be like our closest neighbor, the moon, where the daytime temperatures go to 127 degrees and the nighttime temperatures go to minus 173 degrees, and so on. It supports a great diversity of life. Ocean and humans, as Antonella said and Leonard said earlier, that humans and ocean are inextricably linked. And the ocean is largely unexplored, which is where this whole business of, the United Nations Ocean Decade for Decade of Ocean Science, science we need for the ocean we want. So all that, is combined in this whole idea of ocean literacy in the 7 principles of ocean literacy. I have my own 7 principles, or what I call as 7 pillars of ocean literacy or ocean governance. And these consist of these, but if you see the 7th one, I consider that as the central pillar, education and awareness. And that's at the heart of ocean literacy. But importantly, of course, it has to be supported by the other pillars, which are science and technology, geopolitical economy, institutions and organizations, democratic institutions, of course, legislation and making laws that can work and that can be implemented. The role of civil society, you, me, everybody, governments, industries, organizations, commercial bodies, and so on. How to get the money for doing the right things that you want to do. Do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. We always say that. but how to get the money to do it, financial initiatives. So all these are the pillars that we want to support. And this whole idea of 7 pillars came to me when we were paying tribute to Elisabeth Borghese in December 2002 at UNESCO in Paris, after her death in February 2002. And after my talk, I came out with these 7 pillars, and I have made an entire kind of ocean governance literacy program on my own, on what we call as a lecture circuit, if you like, on this. And I have developed that since 2002 for the last over 2 decades now. The ocean literacy, how do you want to take it, the way forward to it? And one of the biggest things Elizabeth used to always say is it has got to be at all level and for all ages. I think Antonella just mentioned that, irrespective of age, whether it's grandparents or grandchildren or whatever, everybody has got to be involved. And Elizabeth used to talk of children from 8 to 80. So I asked her out of curiosity, Elizabeth, why do you use the number 8? And she said, that is where little animals become human beings. She actually presented her copy of a book, Chairman and Super Shark. It was a book she had done for children. And she presented that to my son, who was about 7 or 8 at that time. And she wrote that, this is exactly what she wrote, that this is the age at which little animals become human beings. And then I said, why 80? And that time, because I had met Elizabeth for the first time when she was about 60, in her 60s. And she said, old age is my age plus 20, so that's why this 80s, so, but the idea is that everybody is included. So the whole idea is to get amateur enthusiasts. So we want to combine amateur vigor with professional rigor, formal and informal education, goal-focused and open-ended both. It's got to be both. And training of professionals, continuing professional development is very important. And educating policymakers, that's the absolutely most crucial thing. The policy makers who are our decision makers, will be changing our lives for generations, lifelong learning for them is extremely important. So in my case, sort of creation of a more responsible civil society is one of the purposes of ocean literacy, and inculcation of ocean culture, which I have talked about through this whole idea of creating ocean mafia, in thought and action, as well as in legislation and implementation based on robust science. Both natural sciences and social sciences have got to be given equal importance. Promotion of equal ocean-related activity at every level of education, whether it's primary education right up to doing PhDs and postdoctoral and beyond. But need for the training of practitioners is extremely important. So this whole idea of lifelong learning or continuing professional development. Then community and voluntary efforts to raise public awareness. So getting local people, local ideas, local knowledge, etc., and general training in the area of ocean governance. So all of those things are our focus. Our drivers are this whole idea that comes from BBC's founder, Lord Reed's motto, that we must, BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, I'm very impressed with their work always. And they have this motto, which is inform, educate, and entertain. And that's exactly what we are trying to do. And of course, most importantly, we want to empower by doing it. So the key is also to do serious things in a fun way. And as Antonella was mentioning, we allow for lots of debate and discussion. And there is a lot of banter also going back and forth when we are doing this. So there's, doing serious stuff in a fun way is extremely important when you learn. So going back to 1968, 55 years before today's conference, in New Delhi itself, where you all are, unfortunately, I am not there. But there was this Senegalese forestry engineer called Baba Dioum, who had this famous quote, in the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. So there's this great link between what we are taught and what we will conserve. Environmental protection or ocean protection and education are inextricably linked. And, people like Baba Dioum or people like Wangari Maathai, they are the ones who are the inspiration behind creating this great wall from Dakar to Djibouti, which will be protecting, which will be arresting the growth of desert from, from North Africa to Sub-Saharan Africa. So those are the kind of inspirations that we're talking about. So let me talk a little bit, because Antonella has spoken in greater details about the principles and the philosophy behind the International Ocean Institute, Ocean Academy. I want to talk about, give some focus to Ocean Academy in India. So the timeline is very, very short, as you can see. The sort of the great and the good of the International Ocean Institute started in 27th of May, and I was asked to join the seminars. This was obviously online during COVID time. And that time we talked of this idea of getting together, how to get the participants, how to get the finances, how to get the support services, what topics should we be talking about, etc. And then I was honored to be appointed the director of the IOI. And then I was told to find a partner in India. And I was lucky to find Vinitaa, who was enthusiastic about doing it. I put her in touch with Antonella, who were both happy to work with each other. And I was the kind of, the glue that brought them together. And then we signed this tripartite agreement on Elizabeth Borghes's 20th anniversary. And of course, we launched immediately the program on World Water Day last year on 22nd of March. And we have already done 3 programs. So the 4th one is coming later this year. So we are already moving pretty quickly, 2 programs per year. Vinitaa is talking in terms of 3 programs per year starting 2024. She is very enthusiastic, and I cannot stop admiring her. Anyway, the tenets, the basic tenets of International Ocean Institute are, it's available, as Antonella said, it's free of cost to the participants, virtual online delivery, so you can get it anywhere, as Antonella said, 20 hours, so it's not too taxing for anybody, 10 sessions of 2 hours each, must have genuine link to ocean governance. That's the most important thing. Addressed to amateur enthusiasts, important, very important. Delivery in local languages. We are trying to do that. And again, Vinitaa is going to be helpful doing that. We are looking for partners because India is a continental country, so obviously we have lots of regions, lots of languages. So we want to get that. And of course, we give a certificate at the end by a way of recognition. Now, the team is very important, and the team consists of my 2 bosses, my 2 friends, if I can call them my bosses. Antonella, when Antonella asked me to look for a partner, I was looking for Antonella Vasallo, AV, I was looking for VA, and I found Vinitaa Apte, just to reverse the names and reverse the initials, as it were. Vinitaa is the founder director of TERRE Policy Center. Antonella is the managing director of IOI. Tutors, the team consists of course, the tutors. It started off with 2, me and Vinitaa to start with. And no, Miss Pitare, actually, Dr. Pitare to start with. And then went to 4 in the next session, in the second course, and 6 in the next one. And hopefully we'll keep on growing the number of tutors as we go, so we'll probably have 10 sessions delivered by 10 people, maybe even more people, we'll see how it goes. Over 60 participants on each of these programs that we have done so far. And that's a good number. That's a good, solid, healthy number. And the most important team, of course, is this broader IOI Academy programs, the 15 of them to date, constant feedback loop of all the directors and all the other people who are working on these 15 different programs in different countries, learning from each other's experience. So that's very important. The topics that we're looking at are, of course, a range of topics, and they cover natural and social sciences, as I've said, but of course, a focus on ocean governance. And the overarching emphasis is on multidisciplinarity. I firmly believe personally, when Vinitaa was talking about my vision and my philosophy, I'm not big enough to talk about vision and philosophy and those kind of things. But my ideas simply are natural sciences run the world, but social sciences rule the world. That's what I firmly believe in. So there's you have to have this importance given to both natural and social sciences, in my view. IOI Academy, the tutors. Now, of course, I've said we've gone up from 2 to 6 to 2 to 4 to 6, but we want to include all sorts of, backgrounds in these tutors. We don't just want to have university academics. We want to get people, of course, from who are university academics, but we want to get consultants and experts. We want to get industry and commerce experts, people from the fisheries, people from shipping and so on, government departments in India, and of course, from neighboring countries, intergovernmental and non-governmental organization people from UNESCO, people from UNDP, etc., community of stakeholders, to local people who have some stake at what's happening in the realm of the ocean activists and advocates. We want to get all sorts of people in our tutor list as far as possible. what are we going to do tomorrow? What's the future for this Ocean Academy India in the coming months and years? So we want to deliver more programs annually. Vinitaa is already talking about 3 next year. Maybe we'll increase the numbers. Create a greater regional base, to have greater regional focus. India being a continental country, is imperative that we at least have 4 or 6 regional bases and develop more programs. Develop and deliver programs in more regional languages. Scout for more regional experts in all those areas that I have mentioned on my previous slide. Programs directed to business executives and policymakers. So more tailor-made programs. Then innovative programs to show links between coastal regions and the hinterland, because it's only the southern part of India which has ocean around it, but the rest of it is hinterland, which is, you know, what we call people who are not living very close to the ocean. So what's their link? What is at stake for them with the ocean? They ask many times, oh, what have I got to do with the ocean? And we have to bring forth that point to them as well. So what's our final goal? What are our final goals? First one is creating this human capital, inducting, nurturing, and deploying these, what we call as, amateur enthusiasts. Intellectual capital, contributing to debates and discussions to the extent possible, as Antonella mentioned in her talk, by having ample time for people to do questions and answers and so on, and debates and discussions. Networking capital, connections and linkages, like we're doing now, what we are doing today, for example, and I'm sure Antonella, on our behalf, on behalf of the International Ocean Institute, will find new partners through this International Conference on Sustainability Education to develop better programs for IOI India Academy, and help me and help Vinitaa do that. And I'm sure with Vinitaa and her team's enthusiasm, we will be able to do that. Brand capital, we want to create this, like, again, as Antonella is saying, we have got this alumni base. They are our ambassadors. They are the people who are now, some of them, I did these programs, IOI programs, and I was one of the first to do it in 1983 and 1984. And I have now developed a network and this power to convene through recognition. People recognize, alumni from International Ocean Institute, and we want to, use them to develop our brand capital, as it were. And in the end, I mean, encompassing all 4 of the above, we want to have this globalization capital. It's not restricted only to IOI Ocean Academy India or Turkey or Kazakhstan or wherever. It's all these global academies which will come together, interact, and we'll have this, the human capital, intellectual capital, networking capital, brand capital, all of it working globally for the benefit of the ocean and for the benefit of these, ocean literacy programs. So that's my sort of brief take, as it were. So thanks for listening, but I want to end by this very important note, that it's not the end of the problem, but the solutions must begin somewhere. And I'm grateful to Avni Benham, my good friend. He's a friend of mine from going back to 40 years, Antonella, and all of IOI and Vinitaa for, making that start. Solutions have to begin somewhere. And we have started that solution in India. And I'm grateful to all of you for working with me. And thank you very much again for the opportunity, and thank you for listening. Thank you. I'm not able to hear now, actually. I could not hear at all.
Hello, can you hear now?
I can hear now, yes. Thank you.
I say thanks to you. My enthusiasm is mostly depend on my young team. So I extended my thanks to my young team too. So we are listening all about ocean literacy, which is very important. Everyone knows that more than 70% of Earth is occupied by the ocean and the water, and how water is very important for our life. The ocean biodiversity is day by day decreasing because of our man-made interactions and intervention to the ocean. Only the plastic has decreased a lot of biodiversity, and everyone knows that the high carbon sequestration in the coastal region as well as in the ocean. And the person who is next to me is Kanna Kumar. He is passionate about not only about the ocean or the world underwater, but he is passionate about mangroves, forestation, about mangroves and carbon sequestration. So let's listen what his thoughts are.
Okay. A very good afternoon. So I know there are like beautiful and very fascinating lectures and like speakers like that they shared about their thoughts about the institutions and the organizations like they have been a part of, and how they are spreading different projects and their initiatives around, that it be direct interventions of rebuilding, restoring these habitats, or with IOI, as Dr. Antonella said, about literacy, ocean literacy. I think like that sets a very nice stage, and also like with Dr. Sunil, like who also shared about IOI's initiatives. I think that sets a very nice stage, like for things like that I'm going to share with you. But the way or like whatever I'm going to share with you is not my story, or it's not something very intellectually dense or thick. But what I'm trying to share with you is a story from the ground. And this is not about me, or this is not about my intellectual capacity, but this is about a story from the ground of the people. So with the four speakers, like they spoke a lot about need for education. But what is that? Who are those who should be taught? Or what about the people, or what about the places like that should be taught as a part of this education? Which is like very important question like that should be asked. So but before I go there, like, and I would like to ask, how many people here have been to Sundarbans? Great. Or how many people here been to Bitrakanika? Oh, that's great. So I have like somebody like who can connect like with what I'm going to share, the story of people. So the story like I'm going to share with you are the stories of like two places. One, it's Sundar Island, one of the biggest islands in Sundarbans, and there is another one which is Sathabhaya, is one of the villages that's almost eaten away. It's right now under the ocean. So Sathabhaya is actually 7 brothers. Of course, none of the brothers are alive today, except like Sathabhaya is like hanging barely there. So as you can see, like this picture was taken by one of my friends from Sathabhaya. And of course, like, and I could have made a very, very compelling presentation, but sorry, like I had like a very limited time and pictures, so I could not like make it as compelling, as interactive as possible. But with the picture, like it was taken from Sathabhaya, and as you could see, the ocean has almost engulfed the entire village, and what is left here is barely hanging there. That source, which was source of life, water, is barely hanging. So at this conference, and this like an opportunity, like about this ocean land, about this international conference, I would like to speak a little more about ocean land, the impact of ocean on land, but the impact of ocean on land, when it is physical, it is visible. But when it is psychological, it's barely visible. So I'm not going to speak like more about the physical impacts of ocean, but the physiological, or not even physiological, psychological impacts of ocean, when one of the important factors or important variable, which is mangroves, are missing. So it's a story about mangroves, it's a story about people, it's a story about oceans and its impact on land, and how everything impacts the mental health of the people, and what education, or like, and how education like, and can actually address like these things, is what the story would be all about. There's also a few pictures like in Satabaya, and you can see like in almost the houses were abandoned, there are no people like living there, and you can see one of my friends who is also like doing a lot on refugees, climate refugees. You can see the picture there, and also the culture like in which we're talking about, like for the speakers like also spoke about culture. So temples or places of worship are one of the representation like in culture, and you can actually see how culture is also at the receiving end of erosion and ocean engulfing the coast. So here I was talking about like Kendrapada, which is one of the districts, coastal districts of Odisha. And you can see the red lines is where a lot of erosion has been happening, which is actually happening at a very fast pace. But I'll tell the reason like why it is. But when we're talking a lot about erosion, coastal erosion, what, I don't know, you can correct me like if I'm wrong, but whatever like a little that I studied, most of the erosion is actually happening at the estuarine areas. Not necessarily like an entire course, like, but actually at the estuaries. But it actually makes us like ask this question, like why estuaries? Why not anywhere else? But I think maybe I'll also try to address like that, answer that question, like why it is. Jagatsinghpur and Kendrapada, these are the two places in Odisha where you also have these mangroves, large number of mangroves, and also like the deltas of the Mahanadi in the estuarine areas. And this is Sagar Island, which is towards India, which is one of the largest islands of Sundarbans. And you can see all those like red areas that are there, which from the studies like they have found there's a lot of erosion, and almost like 50 square kilometers of Sagar Island has been already washed away. It's under the water right now. But why is this happening? So with the rate of erosion, like as you can see, with the Sagar Island, like it lost like more than 50 square kilometers of the land mass of this particular island. And then if you see like there are surrounding islands that are also part of like this Sundarbans delta and ecosystem, most of them have disappeared. We have lost them. We don't have, like that's a list that's right there. And the people like of these islands are now resettled on Sundar Island. So there's a lot of resettlement, people actually moving from the neighboring islands which already disappeared over a period of time. That's like it's happened like long before this climate change, everything narratives like have took the center stage. By 1990s, most of them like have vanished. Of course, like we didn't even like start talking about climate change at that point of time. And when it comes to Satabaya, as I've said, like Satabaya is like Sat is 7, Bhaya is like brothers. There's 7 brothers. All the lists like the names there, none of them are there. Right now, Satabaya is the only village that is barely hanging there. And apart from that, like more than 16 villages from Kendrapada is already lost into the sea. And 2 more villages from Ganjam districts like are also lost in Odisha alone. And the impact is like kind of like phenomenal in that way. And when it comes to this island, it's very densely populated, like more than 2 lakh people who moved like from other islands, like now they are settled on this particular island. And like they have like 42 villages like on Sundar Island itself. And then with Satabaya, like the village like which is barely hanging, like you have like 600 families like and still living there, barely hanging, without like much amenities. The amenities like that we are enjoying like today, even as basic needs as drinking water is not available like in these places. People are still like looking for resettlement. Resettlement for the people, it's an emergency, but the same thing is not for the bureaucracy or for the government. And then So what we are trying to understand is, okay, there are physical impacts. We know that climate change or some other reasons or destruction of wetlands or mangroves is contributing to erosion or intrusion of water or ocean onto the land. So that is like physical. So people are losing their livelihoods, but what are the consequences of that? Now, one of the easiest way people are trying to cope up is distress migration. People are actually moving away from their moorings, where they used to live, from the place where they used to call as home. And now in Sagar Island, more than 30% of the people have reported to have been involved in migration. And as far as Gujarat to Tamil Nadu and farther to Kerala. Same thing has also been reported from Satabaya as well. So most of the people are actually moving, mostly men, to South Indian states like Kerala for better opportunities. But it has consequences. When men move out, it has a consequence for the families who are left behind. And with men moving out, the amenities not within reach, and the machinery and the government or the bureaucracy is not acting quickly upon the emergency of the people. Now, the two sections of the society, basically mostly the women and children, are the hard hit. And with children, it's even worse, because children, they are not in a position or the power to actually say what they are going through, or they're not in a power to demand what their rights are and what they're really entitled for. So with one of the studies we did, we found there is rampant malnourishment among the kids in Sagar Island, and there are waterborne diseases there. There are food insecurities, skin irritations, diarrhea, whatever. These are physical. But one of the major things that we also found, it was also found by the studies, is the hopelessness of the children and abuse by their own parents, because parents were not able to cope up with the stress that they're going through, because loss of livelihoods, loss of amenities, and the hopelessness in the future. What they do is they actually put the burden on the children, either the caregivers or the parents, and they abuse the children. And children are not in a position to actually see what they are going through, which is very sad. And also in Sundar Island, in most of these Sundarbans, what we also found, was there are more child brides, because as parents started seeing, if the girl is married off, she is better off, because we are not able to take care of her. So that she is married, she is better off. Now, once she is married, she becomes a mother at a very young age. Now, when she herself is a child, she doesn't know how to handle the responsibility of a kid, and it puts more and more stress both on the mother as well as the kid. It's just a vicious cycle, that just spins more further and further and further, and people are not unable to get out of it. And then, when men are moving out, there is an increase in sexual harassment of women who are left behind, especially by these traders, who actually trade them and traffic them into sex trafficking, which is a very sad thing. But it's also there, it was reported, from there. And women are also feeling with insecurity. They have to cope with this. There is increase in drudgery, because they have to play the part of the men as well as women in that house. And similar things or cases are also reported from Satabaya as well. For example, kids who from the Satabaya, there is no more school there, but they have to continue their education. But of course, parents see a value in educating their kids, for which they send their kids into somewhere else, to the nearby village or district, to their relations, where again, because children often feel anxiety, separation anxiety, when you separate them from their parents. So here sometimes kids suffer from that separation anxiety. Sometimes the caregivers abuse them, and also it puts us stress on parents as well, like, by staying like away from their children. But these are like very subtle things which you cannot quantify. These are not visible like the maps that I've shown you. These are not visible in education, but these are like real issues that are there on the ground. And also, as I said, like a similar like to the drudgery and everything in Satabaya, similar things also like play out or playing out in Sundarbans as well. So, but of course, like in a government it's not that like state government is not doing anything. It's doing, but at a very slow pace. Out of the 600 like in households that are displaced, I mean, by at Kendrapada, only a fraction of them like have been moved or resettled in other places. But with the resettlement is not complete, and people like can complain that okay, we don't have the amenities like that are necessary for a good life in these places. There is displeasure. There is loss of livelihoods and livestock as well in these places. But there is an interesting thing, like which I initially started. Like the problem is there, but it's kind of like being compounded, like it's being exacerbated and aggravated with continuous influx of people like from other places. Both Satabhaya as well as Sundar Island has a history of resettlement. For Sagar Island, it's the surrounding people who are settled here. For Kendrapada, in most of the districts, you see the resettlement like from people from Bengal and Bangladeshi refugees who are now settled. Initially it was in thousands, but now people complain that there is a continuous infiltration, and there the infiltrated like population number like could be anywhere in lakhs, maybe 1 to 7. And the influx like of this illegal immigration or infiltration is now leading to destruction of the mangroves in these places. And government like is also, sorry, I'm just wrapping it up. So the mangrove cover is also like being destroyed like in these places due to resettlement problems. So to summarize, these are definitely the problems, but problems like are created because of lack of like what Antonella said earlier, that the decision like it should be made yesterday, but the decisions that were made yesterday should be informed and responsible, which did not happen yesterday. But still now, even like when we are seeing like these things, problems ramifying, we are still continuing construction of dams. One of the main reasons like for the erosion, especially in the estuarine regions, and we are still not taking taking like these resettlement programs seriously, and we are still not seeing mental health as one of the main focus areas that we should bring into education. So my submission to this platform here is about the anxiety and the mental health and the issues of the women and children like who are victims like of this climate change or erosion or whatever, how their struggles should be brought into education, and how these can be addressed like through education is my request and submission like to everybody here. Thank you so much like for the opportunity.
Any questions? It's open for you. 1 or 2 questions. Yes.
It's very interesting, and it is a very interesting session I want to attend, and interesting to hear that the ocean literacy is happening. But what you see, I have worked in Ministry of Environment and Forest for 3 years. They already have a program called SACOM, which is a huge program. And there's a huge things which are happening. And what you're describing about, I'm just coming to this point, it's true for many cases. This country has huge poverty. 50% of the population holds only 3% of the wealth of the country. Per capita income is very low. So if you do this kind of research, many of the villages, many of the areas will show you the same indicators. So it is not something unique in that way. So you will find at least 1,000 places, more than 1,000, 10,000 places having the similar kind of a problem. And what you're missing, the thing is, you're missing what the government has already done. SaciWaters is a World Bank funded project. It has done a lot of things. So you should have called somebody from the ministry to give you the other side of the view also. Because it is becoming only one-sided and one case study. And the forest department, and I was pleasantly surprised, in one of our recent events, tiger events, from WWF, one person said the forest department of India is the best in the world. So I think it is little literacy part I have, you should do it. But if you collaborate with the existing work which the universities are doing, colleges are doing, ministry is doing, it will be far better. And this kind of a case study can be done at any other place and you find the same findings outcomes.
Okay.
So I think you need a better, you need somebody from the policymaker side. I am not doubting what you are saying, but it's partial, it's half or 1/4 of the truth. Full truth is not coming out. So that's my little point in this.
Because you are from government side,
Yeah,
but sometimes when we are at the other end of government, we have a lots of, anyway, this is a topic where there are lots of controversies. Sorry.
It's not a controversy. I'm a retired man, but we also know there's a huge force which is working already there. So one study, and if you do this study in Sikkim, you'll find the similar kind of outcomes.
Yeah, it is.
The children, malnourishment, then this trafficking of women, you'll find it there also.
That's what the NGOs are working for, the betterment of life, isn't it?
So you should have some.
So next, can we go for the next question, sir, please?
I have just a comment. I've been very fortunate to have been in both these areas several times. I feel that we really need to empower women. We need to take literacy broader, not just educate them, but give them the opportunity to earn from that. I'm with Earth Day Network. I'm the regional director for Asia, and every month we award a small group of women who are doing something good for the environment and earning from it. It's very crucial that they must earn from it. And in Sindhudurg, there are women who have started mangroves tourism because they know the area best. So they have hired little canoes and they take tourists, and all it needed was for them to be trained on how to get bank loans, how to better be more professional in their approach. So these are small things which others can do and earn also.
Yeah, thank you.
Just feel.
Please.
Just one clarification. Was this issue with regard to destruction of the mangrove or because of sea level rise and destruction?
So destruction of the mangroves has actually promoted, but of course it's both ways. Earlier it was to increase the coastal aquaculture economy, but later now it has completely went spiraled out into uncontrolled destruction. And if you see mangrove destruction, it is basically for the shrimp culture across in India. Of course, it's the same thing across the world as well at the moment.
This question I asked because there is a lot of work being done in rehabilitation of mangroves in the Sundarban. And even the international community, I was Director General of SaciWaters. We worked in 5 areas in Sundarbans and also in Orissa coast. And there we found that mangroves have been rehabilitated by the forest department to a very great extent. And I think there is a lot of work being done in the coastal areas of both Sundarbans and Orissa. And I think after rehabilitation, is there any change that has taken place? Because this study seems to be lopsided. I mean, I'm not...
No. I think somewhere everybody is missing the point. I'm not talking about, or I didn't present about who is doing what. The focus of the study is there is an issue and how that issue should be brought into education. So there is an issue of health issues and mental health issues especially, and how people are getting impacted, or the psychology of the people, psychological impact I'm talking about. So whatever that is, whether it is one-sided or it is a half truth story or whatever, but the reality is people are trying to cope with the psychological impact of erosion or whatever the consequences of by the ocean engulfing or whatever. That psychological problems are not being addressed, and that is the whole point I'm trying to make. I'm not taking sides of this or that. The whole point is the psychological impact, which is not as prominent as the physical impact like erosion or whatever. So that's the whole point.
Yes. I'm Shweta and I represent Jane Goodall Institute. I live in Pondicherry, and that is quite a hot spot for what you're talking about. And I also have experience visiting Sundarban in a couple of months. What he's saying about the mangrove restoration is happening. Government is doing amazing work over there. But what he is talking about, this erosion and the coastal communities, especially Bay of Bengal. If you compare Arabian Sea and if you compare Bay of Bengal, the erosion is extremely fast and it is accelerated. Why I say this? Because in 2019 December, I relocated to Pondicherry, and 2023 June, there is one very famous Oroville beach. The beach is gone. So I have personally witnessed that, and it's a very serious concern when we talk about ocean education, ocean academy, literacy. People are just not aware. I always say, you live close to the ocean, you know nothing about ocean. You live far from the ocean, you know nothing about ocean. And it's a very beautiful session, and I really congratulate each one of you. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Antonella has a question.
Just one quick question. I was trained as a marine biologist, and one thing I wasn't taught was meteorology. And one of the things I've been doing is films on meteorology recently, and the increasing temperature in the Indian Ocean is fastest ocean, increasing ocean in the world. It's having an effect on the monsoon, because a decrease in the difference between temperature between land and sea. That's one thing I don't learn. And I was talking to somebody who deals with IT for schools, and he's thinking of putting sort of a daily meteorological thing, going to the school saying the climate change affecting that. Is there any thought about this process of getting meteorology, because I wasn't taught that in oceanography, into the syllabus and trying to get a daily broadcast on climate change into the schools in education that way? So that people come in and say, gosh, the monsoons were affected this year, and the rain, there's going to be more drought in certain areas, and it is the major change point.
Who's going to?
I cannot comment on the insertion of meteorological lessons in schools or anything like that, especially because I'm in no position to speak about local curricula in India. But my comment referred to an earlier comment by that representative of that group at the back, you mentioned about the ecological and the ecotourism. I just wanted to jump back to one thing that was mentioned in the opening sessions today, that we are talking about sustainability, but also sustainable development, which I don't need to remind all of you, but is a balance or a balance between three divergent points, which is the environment for sure, but also the economics of it, and also the socio-cultural systems. So I think when we speak about literacy, be it environmental, be it ocean, I think when we should talk about sustainability, when we have that discourse, and on development, because at the end of the day, I think one of your salient points, Kanna, was in fact that, you know, but for some reason or another, things happen, villages get left behind, populations suffer. I think we always need to remember that triangulation between the 3 points of sustainability, which is the environment, very important, the economics of it, because people have to make a living, they have to have a future, they have to have a belief in that future, and they need to invest, because one way or another we're all invested in our future, whether it's financially, whether it's in terms of hope or culture, and also the socio-cultural dimension of this. So I think to wrap up a lot of points that were made by many people here, one way of achieving or maybe balancing these three disparate, as in diverse, points is through education. So I just wanted to make the point that brings us full circle to all the thematics that we've been approaching so far in the conference. So when we talk about literacy, we cannot not talk about the impact of the environment on humans, on their livelihood. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's very much the shocking examples that remain in our mind. But yes, there are also good examples of livelihood regeneration and environmental regeneration. And I think our discourse should be recognizing of that balance, and I think also recognizing that we are able to do something about it. We have knowledge, we can spread that knowledge, we can take action if it's based in science and knowledge. And I think this is where maybe our conversation can focus a little bit. From my part, I see it as the dissemination of that knowledge, as spreading the knowledge of what we can do. I like very much thinking of a glass as half full rather than half empty, so I'll try and be a bit of an optimist. But I just wanted to bring the focus back that much of what we would like to do at the IOI is to bring this idea that yes, we can do something about this. We can bring the change that needs to happen. And every person in his or her own way. So one tiny message, that's all.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, just a moment. Yes.
My question is to Mr. Shastri. So recently, United Nations adopted the High Seas Treaty, or the BBNJ. Recently, United Nations adopted the High Seas Treaty. Would you like to comment on it? Is it a step in the right direction in terms of spreading awareness on ocean sustainability, or there will be some big challenges in the implementation? Thank you.
That's for me, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm delighted that you asked that question, although a bit outside the scope of our thing today. But I'm a great fan of the Law of the Sea Convention, and I see the BBNJ Treaty, the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, as a great step. In fact, we are talking about things like I just mentioned the United Nations Decade for Ocean Science that we are undergoing right now from 2021 to 2030. And in fact, the BBNJ Treaty proposes that we will have 30 by 30, so 30% of the ocean will be a marine protected area by 2030. And in fact, they're trying to extend that on land as well, that 30% of land would be also designated as protected area by 2030. So all these are absolutely fantastic initiatives in the right direction. And BBNJ treaty does a lot to actually strengthen the law of the sea in a particular area where the law of the sea had not actually spelled out actually things as BBNJ has clarified now. And I also would go one step ahead, and I don't know how my other fellow policy thinkers think about this idea, ocean governance people think about this, but I think it's time now that the authority which was created by the Law of the Sea Convention in Jamaica, at that point in time, people are talking of manganese nodule mining as the key business of the authority. But now we realize that protection of the environment, protection of biodiversity is a much greater issue. So perhaps the authority might want to take in that BBNJ as one of its subjects. But that's a much broader subject. That's a much broader thought to say. While I have the stage, may I comment on one or two other questions that were here earlier?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think one of the speakers was talking about involvement of the government, and in fact, we would like to involve everybody, but the point is sometimes what happens is people from the government who are serving government officials are constrained by saying what the government wants them to say, and that's not a negative thing on no negative reflection on them, but that is how it is by the nature of the situation, that you work for the government and you speak what the government line is. So that is the point that I want to make. Another lady, I think she talked about empowerment of women, and I think that is the most important thing that can happen to any society. In fact, uplifting a woman, and I think it's been famously said in the Indian context also that when you educate a woman, you educate the entire family, and that's the importance of educating women and keeping women. In fact, if you see a lot of my social media hashtags that I use, particularly, women will write wonders worldwide. That's my strong belief. Somebody else was talking about, the situation is same in a lot of places, a lot of places around India or around the world, in the developing world, have similar situations of local, small communities and coastal communities, etc. So adopting village would be adopting villages by NGOs or by large organizations might be a good idea. In fact, many years ago, in the late 80s, early 90s, the International Ocean Institute had adopted a village in Tamil Nadu, and there was significant work done in the coastal fisheries community in that area. And finally, I think Antonella was talking about the three-legged stool, or three things which I call people, planet, and prosperity. But and if you see, in fact, my logo, the ocean governance logo on my slides, you will see that the first three circles represent people, planet, and prosperity. But more importantly, the next three circles there are represent actually equity, justice, and peace. Because Mahatma Gandhi very famously said that peace is not mere absence of war. Peace requires the determinants are more sort of economic and social and increasingly environmental. So that economic, society, and environment, or people, planet, and profit are key to all development and probably ultimate peace, or what we call as Pacem in Maribus at International Ocean Institute, Pacem in Maribus, our logo, our motto. And again, finally, in fact, just to make a small point at the end, Antonella is talking about optimism, and we have all got to be optimistic. All environmental people have got to be optimistic. The optimism is not a celebration. It is not. I'm not celebrating by being optimistic, because if I'm not optimistic, I cannot get up the next morning to do the positive things that I want to do. So I have got to be optimistic in order to, keep on hammering, or keep on, chipping at it. So that I can make that small bit of difference on a day-to-day basis. So that's what optimism for me is. Thank you.
I always say optimists have always
I think only one or two questions, and then we have to wrap up. It's already 15 minutes.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Myself, Professor Priyanka Puri from Delhi University. And first of all, I would like to congratulate all of you online, sir, and people on the dais. And all the lectures were, I mean, equally interesting, and one could really relate to that. And basically, I just want to have one or two comments, like sir has mentioned number 8. So the World Oceans Day is also celebrated on 8th of June. And the UN motive this time was the planet ocean and the tides are changing. So basically, I'm also working on the oceans, but since the theme of the conference is education, so that is basically in the education sector. And like you have said, for partnership and other related works. So we have the Ocean Society of India as a basic body, which is a non-governmental body for the dissemination of information on oceans, and they are also working in the practical field. And they have like PG Dissertation Awards and other kind of practical work, seminars, workshops and conferences being organized on the oceans. So I'm the elected member of the first Delhi NCR chapter, and I would be happy to work with you. I mean, in any case, we can have any collaboration, and our college is also one of the partners in this conference. So in any of the ways we can contribute, and currently I'm ensuring a faculty development course on the ocean itself with IIT Delhi Center for Atmospheric Sciences. And on the World Oceans Day in June itself, we had conducted a webinar. And prior to that, also on 7th of June, we had a webinar on disseminating the information on the world's oceans.
Okay. Thank you. We will get back to you, definitely. Thanks. And you are most welcome for collaborating.
Yeah, thank you so much, and congratulations for the session.
Thank you.
So, hello, I am Dr. Akash Kumar, and I have one just a comment or what I have some concern point that the MOEF has one division called Cisco. They have mangrove plantation plan and maintenance. So they have approved for 25,000 crore rupees for whole India. Of course, Odisha will be one person, and some part will be in your study area as well. So I think when we develop some project, so there will be some kind of social aspect in the project. So we were part of the metro line in Mumbai city, where city is already congested. So there are lots of rehabilitation and settlement plan. So of course the planning authority have given attractive offer to the resettlement people or public. So 2.5 times of the current value. But is it enough or something? So we had some, because this project was funded by KFW. So we have to report to KFW to where the assessment were appropriate or not. So they said only we have given 2.5, that is more than enough. But in our opinion, there is one point.
See, we will wrap up afterwards and we'll talk separately on this. It's a very nicely you have raised this issue, because many people are not aware of it. So we'll sit separately and talk on this. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the beautiful audience and the fantastic questions, because this way the whole session we look forward that it's interesting and also lively because of your interventions. Thank you so much.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to take this opportunity and request Vinitaa ma'am to kindly present token of appreciation to all our speakers here. To begin with, Mr. Leonardo Sonansky. Thank you, sir. Ms. Antonella Vasallo. Thank you so much, ma'am. Mr. Kanna Siripurapu. Thank you to the panel for setting up the right tone. And special thanks to Sunil sir for always being there with us and being the most important pillar of TERRE.
And your trophy is at our Pune office. So whenever you will be next in Pune, you will get the trophy. Thank you.
Thank you to all the audience for patiently listening to all the speakers. Thank you so much.